A 6-year-old boy was once asked to define the term conscience. He wasn't quite sure what it was, but thought it had something to do with feeling bad when you kick girls. Yeah, we're talking about this thing called conscience. Joseph Henry Thayer was a professor for New Testament criticism and interpretation at Harvard Divinity College. He defined conscience, a soul, as distinguishing between what is morally good and bad, prompting to do the former and shun the latter, commending the one, condemning the other. Founder of the School of Analytical Psychology, Carl Jung wrote, "Deep down, below the surface of the average man's conscience, he hears a voice whispering, there is something not right, no matter how much his rightness is supported by public opinion or by the moral code." Let's hear it succinctly. Ava Jo Stevens said, conscience is that small voice that makes us feel small when we do something small. And former journalist and scholar of American English, Henry Louis Mencken, artlessly said, conscience, the inner voice which warns us someone may be looking. He later added, conscience is a mother-in-law whose visit never ends. To put it simply, we have a conscience. Those considered not having one are often labeled sociopaths. The point being, you, the one watching this video, have a conscience. It is a real viable thing, yet it is intangible. It exists, but cannot be seen. In his work titled The Abolition of Man, Vishal Mangawati explains, the truth is that our bodies have no organ called conscience. That is why no atheist country has ever guaranteed freedom of conscience. For it is an aspect of our soul. It is based upon the Bible's view of man as a living soul made in God's moral and rational image. And there it is. With the discussion of conscience, the idea of God's existence is assumed. In his work from 1958, A Psychological View of Conscience, Carl Jung said, conscience itself asserts that it is a voice of God. In his piece titled The Island, released in 1823, Lord Byron wrote, man's conscience is the oracle of God. Peter Ustinov declared, a twinge of conscience is a glimpse of God. And among his 8-volume theological series titled Arcana Coelestia, Emanuel Swedenborg says, conscience is God's presence in man. It seems with this conscience, we are still privileged with free will. We can submit to it or reject it. Even then, there is evidence our choices can move us toward or away from this notion of God. In John's Gospel, the 8th chapter shows religious leaders who, when challenged about their own sin, being convicted by their own conscience, walked away from the one whom God sent. By contrast, the Apostle Paul, who when facing an angry religious council said, I have lived in all good conscience before God until this day. And when he was on trial before a governor, he said, I always take great pains to have a clear conscience toward both God and man. Now it comes to you. Do you think this thing called conscience is something created by man? Is this idea of a moral code brought about by human beings, or is it inherent? If it is inherent, is it inextricably linked with the notion of God's existence? Feel free to leave a comment, and we'll see you next time.